Information Area, or TISPI as it's called. Nick, can you tell us about your job and what you do in support of that?
So TISPI is the testing of avionics and weapon systems. It requires a tester to be able to prove the performance of a system under tests by measuring its performance against some sort of known quantity. So we call that TISPI truth, and that's what the TISPI flight, which I work in, is responsible for. It's providing the TISPI truth data back to our customers.
And it has to do with where an
you
object
are
is or
and
something?
actually how accurate are you.
Now, does most of your work happen in the Ridley Mission Control building?
Yes. So my primary office is within Ridley Mission Control. However, I do support the rest of the facilities across the Edwards base. I'm here and go for different reasons and different things. So from time to time, I may be actually doing a presentation or a talk or a training actually at one of our remote facilities, for example, NASA. I did a training over a few days actually at NASA with about 60 people, getting them to know about how our software works and what we do, things like that.
But when we previously had spoken, you'd mentioned that you also work with Eglin and their range.
So the Air Force Test Center comprises of Eglin and Edwards. So as part of that, we are responsible for within also the Air Force Material Command for processing and doing Air Force tests. So as Eglin, most people would know, is a big water area that's got a lot of space to be able to do a lot of stuff. And we are obviously in the desert, very encapsulated by land. So we do a lot of partnerships under the Air Force Test Center kind of plan.
Well, speaking of tests, can you name some of the programs that you've worked on that our listeners might be familiar with?
So, without going to prison, if you looked up online, you could see that Edwards is home to a number of programs from the old tried and true B-52 bombers to the F-16 fighter jets, the F-22 Raptors, and the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, which is currently here. Ridley Mission Control and the range that we work with is responsible for supporting all of the programs and all the residents on Edwards in one way or the other. So we sort of touch everybody who is here in one way or the other. Whether or not if you are even a commercial, Boeing has come in and done Dreamliner tests because we have a huge runway. And a number of programs, BMW comes in because they have a lot of space. They can do a lot of other things. So companies have the ability to come in and use our facilities because of where we're situated. And we sort of support anybody. Even Mojave has a lot of obviously new sort of commercial plans for like Stratolaunch and Virgin Galactic and things like that. So we do partner with anybody who's obviously within earshot of us here. So
that is exciting.
Yes.
And it's got to be really rewarding, especially knowing that you're working in support of the warfighter too.
Yes.
Does that add more importance to your mission as you think about that?
It definitely hits home a little bit more often when you can put a face on a number of people. I would say that obviously in the years that I've been here, we've lost a few pilots. Flight test is obviously inherently dangerous. You are doing the unknown, and to be able to put a face on somebody to make sure that they have the opportunity to go home to their family, that people, friends of my own, and those who've been deployed overseas have a better chance of coming home to their own families and spending more time. Maybe it's a firstborn, maybe it's something else. I mean, there's brothers, sisters, fathers, daughters, all kinds of people are here and also deployed overseas. So doing what I can to make sure that they have a better chance is all worth it.
Okay, so when we come back, we're going to learn how that last recession and lack of jobs led to a cross-country journey and a new beginning. Welcome back to Edwards Beyond the Test. Today we're talking with Mr. Nick Perry, who is a computer engineer for the 412th Range Squadron here at Edwards Air Force Base. So Nick, let's go back to around 2007, 2008. You were living in Detroit, Michigan in that area and graduated from college. But the recession was hitting and you couldn't find local work.
Yeah, so 2008, Detroit was actually in pretty bad shape. A majority of the population, especially with the automakers and the bankruptcy calls, things like that, was hitting hard. I had a number of neighbors who were putting their homes on the market and were underwater on their mortgages, and it was a little scary even at home from time to time, not knowing whether or not if I was going to get a phone call saying, hey, by the way, Dad got let off work or something else has gone wrong. But at the same time, new, hopefully, if nothing else behind me, trying to forge a new path forward. I went to a couple of job fairs around the Detroit area, and with everybody else that was also out of a job, it was you're 1 in 10,000 people that's trying to find work. And for some of them who have 20 years or so experience, you're fighting against an uphill battle. So after a couple failed job fairs, I actually told my parents, I have to look wider. I have to throw a bigger net, and I have to be able to relocate anywhere. And luckily, I've moved around a few times as a kid, so I'd never been too scared of kind of uprooting and moving on and starting someplace new and making new friends and things like that. So I put out my my resume for school everywhere I could, on Monster.com and all those other places, and was like willing to relocate nationwide. And I got a phone call from my former boss now, asking to talk about what I was doing with school and what I was looking for and a bunch of other things. And I was obviously terrified and nervous on the phone call, but talked to my parents and said, I don't know if I bombed that. I don't know whether or not that was good or not. We're kind of like, okay, that's it. And then it was quiet and nothing. And then all of a sudden, about a month or so later, I was in the garage with my mother, cleaning out the garage. It was for some reason, warm early spring, and the package was sitting on the front doorstep, and went up and picked it up, and it was mailed to me. Opened it up, and it was a JT3 employment offer thing. And I remember my mom bawling in the garage. She had a broom in her hand, and she realized that I had gotten a job offer, and it was, we'd love you to come out to California and work for this company that does stuff for the military. And, oh, by the way, you need to be here in 3 weeks because a job offer is, only good for, I think, 72 hours or something like that after you receive it. And I told my parents, I said, I got to take it. I got to go. So I called the HR office and told them, yes, I'll take it. And the lady was shocked that I already got it, but I told her, like, yes, I'll be there. And just like, this is the start. I'm moving. I'm gone.
So that was kind of bittersweet too, because you're very close to your family.
Yes.
So your dad drove with you to come out here.
Yes. So it was one of those kind of everything that possibly could be going on at the same time. So my sister also, who I'm luckily be very close with, was pregnant with my niece. And she was just about actually to enter labor days later. So my niece was born, and we had to deal with that whole thing. And then had to find an apartment and everything else. Drove out to see my niece for the first time, got to hold her for a day, spent the night with my sister, and following morning got up, got in a car, drove from her house to Chicago to pick up my father, who was at a business conference in Chicago. He ran into a McDonald's to change out of his business suit into a set of jeans and a sweatshirt, threw the rest of his stuff and locked his car at the office. We jumped in my very old car and drove across the country together, and actually even through a snowstorm in Colorado. It was late February, and we caught in a mini blizzard in the mountains going through the Rockies, and got to Vegas finally after realizing we needed to stop probably and sleep. Slept in a hotel for a few hours, and then got up the following 6 a.m. or something like that and made the final trek into Antelope Valley.
Okay. Wow. So going from an expected career with the big three automakers to working for the Air Force in flight test. We'll talk about that in a moment. Welcome back to Edwards Beyond the Test. Today we're talking with Mr. Nick Perry, a computer engineer with the 412th Range Squadron. So when you arrived to work at Edwards 10 years ago, what did you find yourself in the midst of?
It was a lot.